Oh, I totally forgot to turn on my camera before I hit the start stream. Let me see if that is fixed now. Holy smokes, what a way to start. Welcome, everybody. If you are new here, my name is Jules. My pronouns are he, him. I am a commercial food photographer and stylist, and soon to be cookbook author. And this week has been exciting. We'll talk about it as we plan or journal or do art or whatever it is you're here to do. Maybe just hang out. For the next hour and a half, I am going to be setting up my upcoming week. And I do have to say that I am excited about a few things, I would say. I have a bunch of things happening this week aside from getting my copy edits returned, which are very minor things. So let's back up. So my copy edits were supposed to arrive on Wednesday, but things happened, and so there was a bit of a delay, and I didn't get them until yesterday. And I'm about already a third of the way through reviewing and editing them. So that is good. It also means that so my original due date to return the copy edits and make my notes or changes or whatever was June 8th. And because of the 2 days difference, it is now June 10th. But what I'm trying to say here is that meeting that deadline is not going to be a problem at all. Because I'm just whipping through them. They're minor things, and so my anxiety about whether or not hi Anomic. So my anxiety about whether or not I'm going to be able to get all of the edits done in good enough time. Those are totally that's gonna happen. It's gonna be fine. This coming week, I have to do a quick mock-up because they're actually having the design meeting this week. Oh my goodness, this is happening. They're having the design meeting this week to start talking about design ideas for my book. And I have some suggestions that they are very happy to hear. So this week I have to do a quick little mock-up with just some things that how I envision certain parts of the book to look. So that's exciting. I also have some other things happening this week, but so let's just get into our planning. What are you doing today, Anomic? Are you journaling? Are you arting? Are you just hanging out? Are you planning your week? Did you have anything exciting happen this past week? My most exciting thing that happened this past week, aside from getting my copy edits, which is a big deal, we finally finished the last season of Snowpiercer. Yes, it is coming together and becoming more real. We finished Snowpiercer this week. Oh, thank you. I'm excited for me too. And I have to say, I'm a little bit angry with the way they ended it. And normally it would be because there's a little bit of a cliffhanger, but it's not a huge cliffhanger. The thing that I am angry about with Snowpiercer is 3 seasons would have been a great, the way that it ended up until the last 2 minutes. It would have been a great way to end off the series and just okay, you know what? We're done. But no, they had to do a thing where it's like, well, now we're gonna get a fourth season, and I don't know if they can get a fourth season that is good, because this third season was not the greatest. It was, I mean, it wasn't horrible, but it was kind of plotting, I suppose, maybe the word for it. It's not really so much a pace thing, because I know there's a lot of people who describe certain shows as, like, really slow moving and taking a while to get going. Like, a lot of people describe Severance as slow, and I wouldn't describe Severance as slow at all. I like the pacing of shows like Severance. It works for me. So, yeah, I don't know. So, Anomic is planning their week today. COVID is basically over, yay, and they can smell and taste again as of yesterday. Thank goodness. That was a rough 5 days. No doubt. I mean, that was one of my biggest fears when I was in the testing phase of my cookbook, and I had to recook everything a million times and taste it and make sure I was getting consistent results. Like, that's the thing with a cookbook. The results have to be consistent. They have to make sense. They have to be formulaic. And that was, I mean, even though we were extra careful, it was like, what if I lose my sense of smell and taste while I'm developing a cookbook? That would have been not a good situation. Yeah, so when a series takes a turn you don't like. Yes, that's pretty much, I mean, I'm fine with another season. I will watch another season. But another season is unnecessary. This is one of the things that, and a lot of people complain about limited series. We love limited series in this house. We like it when we know it's going to be ending and a nice tidy wrap up, and we can, know that we're going to be enjoying it for a limited amount of time. When they do things like they did with Snowpiercer, that pretty much doesn't need another. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, like, I don't know. It's done. In my minds, it's over. Or it could have been over, I should say. It was a good place to end it. I'm going to leave it at that. And so now that all of the most recent season of Euphoria has finished airing, now that's what we're moving on to next. Because, we like to wait until the whole entire season is done airing or is released or whatever before we watch it. We like to, it's not binge watching, it's just we like to watch shows in chunks, especially my partner, they have ADHD, and their ADHD manifests as such that if there's too much time between episodes, they don't retain enough, like they don't remember enough for them to be able to enjoy it. So, I like being kind of like comforted, wrapped up in a show for a chunk, and then before moving on to the next one. RG 120. I have a deadline this week, which is exciting. I don't know about other people, but I enjoy deadlines quite a bit. They give me something to work towards. Deadlines allow me to plan better and just take care of myself better, which may be weird, but that's what they do. So I have to have, yes, commercials are pretty much unbearable now. Yeah, I don't even, I mean, there's some streaming services where it has like the odd commercial break, and that's fine, I guess. But, they're just a lot. And so, as we do a lot to try and avoid commercials as much as possible. I need to look at my month here. So, yeah, I have Oh, it's a holiday coming up too. Not this week, but the week afterwards. In the Americas. Yes, having defined stop days helps keep me on track. Exactly. They it's one of those things so here's the downside, and this is where my OCD and my hyper focus, like my hyper focus turns into OCD behavior really, really quickly. And it's one of the reasons why I have to schedule in breaks and breakfast and stuff like that. And today I'm going to admit that my OCD caused me to skip breakfast because now I have my copy edits and it's exciting to me and I'm enjoying it. And my copy editor, has been very mindful and very very good. I'm very happy with my copy editor and just very thoughtful, very, very thoughtful with the recommendations and some little small changes they've made, and being very good to explain the reasoning behind it. And I don't have to accept their suggestions. I can say, nope, you know what, it needs to be this way, and that's fine. But all their suggestions, except for a couple things, just because it wouldn't work for neurodivergent brains, it's like, yeah, this is really good. Thank you for catching this, or thank you for suggesting this. I didn't think of that. But it's one of those things where, like, yesterday, when I finally got my copy edits back, I, like, plowed through the first, I want to say 80 pages, in 3 hours, which is that's a really good clip. So yeah, I got about a third of the way through in 3 hours last night, and I still, like, I was all night. I could not stop thinking about the copy edits, and it was all like it took every single ounce of energy to stop me from grabbing my computer and working through them all night. I had to make a really concentrated effort to be like, no, it's end of your workday. You're not picking up your computer. You need to, like, spend time with your dogs and have downtime, and you need to do your exercises because that helps with your mental health. Like, you need to like, self-care. Is basically what I had to do all night. And that's fine. And then this morning, the same thing. I woke up and I could not stop thinking about it. And normally Saturday mornings before the live stream, I just, like, play games and futz around the house. Like, Saturdays are a chill day. I mean, it's kind of a work day because I'm planning my week, and that's work. But it's also, like, it's kind of like a half work day, half really do not put too much effort or thought into anything. Like, keep it chill. But I could not, I had to open up my edits this morning and work on them for an hour and a half, which isn't a huge amount of time, but I really should have probably, I mean, it would have been better for my OCD if I, like, did not give in to the obsessive thinking and push through it, because I have a really, it's really turning the brain off is rough at times, especially when you have OCD or you have other conditions that cause you to hyperfocus. I say, Anomika is saying that they've stayed up in bed just thinking. I used to have, and this was also part of a trauma response, I used to have a really difficult time turning my brain off at night. And I would spend, and it was because it wasn't mostly an anxiety response for me. It's not for everybody, but for me, it was one of the ways that my anxiety I would, like, replay everything scenario. I would, like, obsessively plan my next day. And it would be like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm still planning, I'm still tooling, I'm still doing all those things. And one of the things that actually helped not obsess at night, besides working through some cognitive behavioral things with my trauma therapist, is actually planning. Because for a while I used to plan, like forever. I've been planning since, like, using a planner since I want to say the 90s. So a long time. Maybe, yeah, it would have to be the 90s. I mean, ever since we started having to use agendas in high school in the early 90s, I'm aging myself. I love agendas. I love planners. I love writing things out. I love planning. And then I stopped for a bit. And then I guess it was, I want to say 2016 is when I created a system in, I learned about the Traveler's Notebooks. It was Midori at the time. Now it's just Traveler's Company. And that's when I went back to planning. And actually, like, writing out my thoughts and putting it down on paper. It was around that time that I stopped obsessively, compulsively thinking or planning at night and started to fall asleep, like, really, really quickly. Because, like, I'm getting it out, and then it's real. It's no longer something I can have anxiety about. I have an actual plan of action. But I have to be careful how I do that, just because I have a habit that if I overthink my planning system, like, that's a thing where my OCD all of a sudden, like, I can spend a month literally pre-planning my planning and making sure my system is exactly perfect before I actually start using it. So Anamika's saying they graduated high school in 97, so right there with you. Yeah, I graduated in 94. So we're approximately the same age. We're of the same cohort. Absolutely, definitely. So, but, oh shoot, this is the wrong color, Jules. Pay attention. That's fine. Yeah, so it's just one of those things where I'm really, really excited to have my copy edits. It's a great thing, but my hyperfocus is drifting into, it's a fine line. It's one of those things, if you have, especially for those of us who are autistic, and OCD is just one of the ways that our autism manifests itself. Like, and I'm talking about actual, like, OCD as in a diagnosis, and not the term that people like to throw around. We have to come up with all sorts of, because the OCD, it's like a form of stimming, and it helps, like, OCD is primarily driven by some type of anxiety response, and it is our way of trying to control the world so that to lessen anxiety. Stimming is an anxiety response. It's self-soothing. And the problem, though, is that when you are obsessively, compulsively in a behavior and doing something, and there's no ending point, there's no stopping point. Like, in my journal, I put, I'm going to do, like, 40 pages a day, thinking, like, giving clear starting and ending points, because my brain needs to have a clear starting and ending point. And I got through 40 pages of my manuscript last night, and it was like no time, and I'm like, well, what's another 40 pages? And so, yeah, I have to think about, I need to think more about how I can set up some clear stopping and ending points so that my brain has the tools and has, like, I'm creating an environment, I'm creating a situation that that makes me feel like, okay, I have enough done. This is a good spot to stop this and continue on, if that makes sense. I don't know. So yeah, on this week I have to do my mock-up. I have a meeting on Tuesday because in September there is a possibility that I will be hopping on a ferry and going to Vancouver. Well, the mainland, just outside of Vancouver. But yeah, the lower mainland, and to be speaking at a conference that's happening there. So we're having a meeting on Tuesday. It's about some legislative human rights things that I work on as well. So yeah, we're just giving a conference about some things that are that I work on when it comes to my advocacy work. So that is exciting. Let me do this down here, and then on Wednesday, aside from my mock-up being due, there is in the Andrew Scrivani Academy, the food photography thing, one of the people it's giving a talk on beverage photography, and so I'm hoping that I can watch it, but I might not be able to. It depends on if I got the mock-up done. Anomic is saying that they've heard some autistic people say that dishes, ceramic and glass clanking or rubbing together bothers them. Does it bother you as well? And they changed to bamboo dishes because of it. Absolutely. Okay, so there's a specific term that I can never remember that talks about sensitivity to noises. So I can hear every single electronic item in the house, and it literally makes my skin crawl. And there's something like I just can't get away from it, so I have to. A lot of my energy is spent on actually like soothing myself, so I don't have an actual autistic meltdown. Dishes clanging, people eating, the dogs licking, the cats eating. I mean, basically every noise is something that when my partner does the dishes, because they do most of the heavy housework, because I'm unable because of disability, I have to go into a completely different part of the house because the amount of noise that they make is just beyond my ability to cope, and I yell at them. Not because I'm necessarily angry at them, it's just I cannot keep it together. And so they will ask me a question and I will answer it in a barking voice. I'm not angry, it's just that I cannot control myself. Like I cannot self-regulate, that's the word that I'm looking for. So moving to bamboo dishes is a little bit difficult, and I've thought about it, or plastic dishes in general. I've thought about it, but the problem with that is I still have to work with actual like ceramic dishes for my work, and things that make noise. I mean, why I became a food photographer when it's a very noisy job, I don't know. Well, I do know, because the actual act of photography is a grounding exercise, and it helps me to regulate my responses. But I could never work in like a restaurant kitchen because it is just too freaking noisy, and it's too much stimuli. And here's an interesting thing. And I say interesting as another, like, really common thing about autistics. So I am largely nonverbal, and I would never speak if I had my way. I did not speak until I was close to 4 years old. And when I did start speaking, it was in full sentences. It's not like I could not speak. I just chose not to. I don't like it. It's very draining. And yeah, so why are you doing a live stream, Jules, where you have to do speaking? I enjoy sharing my hyper interests. I enjoy info dumping is like the term for it. And planning with people, we get to share common interests. We get to info dump. And so, like, the fact that I get to share one of my hyper-focused, like, one of my, interests with people makes it easy. Like I can talk because I'm actually like info dumping, and info dumping is just something that autistics love to do. There's lots of reasons for it, but it's my theory personally why I enjoy info dumping, and it's one of the reasons why like my cookbook, like how my cookbook is an info dump basically, is that I have a lot of thoughts. My brain is always thinking, figuring stuff out, tooling, imagining, like working out how things work. My brain is always busy. But nothing is real or tangible until I can either, until I have a chance to share it with somebody or, like, manifest it in some way. And the act of info dumping allows me to turn the noise down and the stimulus down in my brain, and it turns, like, an abstract thought into something concrete because I verbalized it, I made it real. Someone else knows that information that I know, and so it's no longer cluttering my brain and creating extra noise. And so it relaxes my nervous system, and it unsticks me from being stuck. And so it is a weird thing that I am nonverbal. I hate talking. It drains every single bit of energy out of me. However, it is also an important part of unsticking myself, is the best way to put it. So it's just weird. But yeah, it's just everything light. I'm very sensitive to light. Yeah, I can laser focus on one thing. Exactly, Anomic. It just I get clarity. And it's different than an ADHD noisy brain. And the only reason why I know this is because my partner is like really a lot of, like, his ADHD causes a lot of impairments. And when we talk about the way our processes work, their brain is so chaotic, like they can't even describe what's going on inside of their brain. It's just chaos. Where I can describe exactly what's going on in my brain. I can always say I'm feeling this way because of, like, it's not just something happening inside my brain outside of my awareness. I know exactly what's going on, what caused it, all that stuff. So, but my brain is busy because I just want to learn everything and absorb all the information that I can, and I have to sort that information and put it somewhere and figure out how I can use that information later. So yeah, and their brain is just different, even though it's kind of the same in that we're overloaded quite often, and things can just be too much for our nervous systems, and so we have a little bit of freakouts. That's one of the reasons also why people with ADHD have emotional dysregulation issues as well. It seems you have the direct cause and effect that can yes, exactly. And it made doing trauma therapy very, very, I don't want to say easy, because trauma therapy is hard work, but it made it, some of the processes that you use in trauma therapy, like one of them is cognitive behavioral therapy. It's not the whole of trauma therapy, but cognitive behavioral therapy does play a part in it. And because I always know what has triggered something, I can always say I feel this way because of, and I usually do not feel an emotion or have an opinion about something until I've had a chance to think about it and figuring out how it affects my life or the life of people that I care about at the end of the day. And it's a lot of the things that, like, some autistic people, people like to say, would come off as uncaring and aloof. But the reality is that we just prioritize things differently. And like, we don't sweat the small stuff. Our small stuff is different. And so it takes a lot for me to even get upset about certain situations, because it's like, there's nothing I can do about it. At the end of the day, it doesn't change my life. Yes, it is an annoyance. Yes, I hate doing it, but I'm not going to get worked up about it. And then there's other things, and it's because it triggers my nervous system that I cannot cope with, and I have meltdowns often. I made a joke this week on Twitter that, because one of the conditions I have is hypermobility of the joints. And so I made a joke because my edits were late because of circumstances, but it was really disruptive to me and my autism, because I run on my schedule, and my schedule is the law in my life. And so I made a joke, and it's not really a joke, it's true. It is that I may have hypermobility of the joints, but I'm not flexible. And that is my number one autistic trait, is I am not flexible. So don't make never mind the small stuff. Exactly. That don't make never mind. Exactly. I like that callback. That was a good callback. So yeah, and that's something that my partner was the other. Oh my God, I have a funny story. So it was, there was something my partner was doing. It was like just not, like 2 minutes late is a huge deal for me, and I have a meltdown. Things have to run on time. Bam. The schedule is the law. And he was doing something the other day, and I said to him, I mean, you always will know where you stand with me. I said to him, it's really difficult. Sometimes it is really difficult living with a chaos goblin. And their response was, yeah, Archer can be difficult sometimes. One of her beagles, for the new people here. And I'm like, I'm not talking about Archer, I'm talking about you. And the look on her face is like, what? Me? I'm like, yes, you. You are a chaos goblin. We were just talking last night about routine, and he says to me, I do have routine. But the problem is that no routine, it's not a real routine, or like you do not accept it as a routine unless it is your routine. I'm like, that is exactly correct. My routine is the routine, and it's what needs to happen. Where you're a chaos goblin and you really don't care about your brain does not register if you're running late or on time until you're actually running late, and then all of a sudden you're having anxiety because you're having to do things quicker than humanly possible. But where I really think ahead, my partner has no ability to be able to think ahead and plan. It's just that whole escapes their ability. ADH brains are something that I really do not comprehend. And it's a chaos goblin. It creates a whole lot of stress in my life. It also stresses their life as well, because they don't like it when they realize that they're running behind schedule on something. But yeah, so it's just one of those things where I'm pretty strict. Everything must fit into my routine is exactly it. And if it doesn't fit into my routine, well, then it's just not going to happen. And it may, to a lot of people, you're like, whoa, you're a jerk, Jules. And I'm like, well, you know what? I may be a jerk sometimes. Everybody is a jerk sometimes. There's no getting around being a jerk. That's part of human nature. We all have the things that kind of set us off and kind of cause us to lose our grace every now and then. It's called being human. And so it's yeah. I gotta see what time that other thing is. But that's one of those things where it needs to fit in my routine and my schedule. And if it doesn't fit into my routine and my schedule, then it's just not going to happen. And yeah, I'm not flexible. I am not flexible. And I don't hide it. I don't make any pretendings otherwise. This is at noon on this day. Okay. And that's fine. But because sometimes my partner doesn't like it, only because of how sometimes I kind of freak out when things don't go exactly as I have planned them. And that's why I constantly have notes throughout my planner, like, you know, it's okay to put things off till tomorrow, except for self-care. Like, I'm constantly reminding myself of those things because I do have complete meltdowns when things don't go my way. And the reason why it works for us, it didn't work with every partner. I'm gonna be honest about that because I am inflexible. But they don't have, like, they're so loosey-goosey about time. Like, time does not exist to them in the same linear fashion as it does for autistic people. Like, timey-wimey, like, is flexible for them. So it's okay that everything is on my routine beverage because they have no routine. I mean, and they can just change, and it's not really. It's only stressful to them when they would rather hyper-focus in their work and forget about the fact that, oh, they have dogs, they have to walk and feed and all that other stuff, right? So, but overall, it's fine. Yes, everyone has, as Anamika is saying, everyone has their thing or pet peeve. So, and it's fine. We can joke about it, which is funny, and there are times, like, he has learned that, like, if I say something is wrong, it is wrong. Like, there's a specific way to do things, and only that way. And this is, again, some OCD things, but there are specific ways to do things, and only that way, and no other way. And we used to have ridiculous arguments over things until he learned that when I am right, meaning me saying I am right, doesn't matter who else says it, but when I am right, when I am correct, when I am just, you're never going to convince my mind of anything else. And it's things that at the end of the day make no never mind. They do not affect anybody's well-being, mental health. It cause no harm. It's whatever. You can go off and do your thing your way, but this is how I'm doing it, and I'm not going to change. Sorry. My way or the highway, kind of. Because there's other things that I'm perfectly fine to negotiate and be flexible on and come up with some type of middle ground and figuring out a solution that works for both of us. But there's other things where it's like, no, this is the way it's going to happen. Because if it doesn't happen this way, I'm going to have a meltdown and I'm going to shut down for days on end. And it doesn't matter that the thing may seem trivial to somebody else. It will actually cause a huge disruption to my ability to function. Just because, like, it needs to be this way. That's the way it is. And so, but we've now have a shorthand where it's one of those things where, sorry, there is no room to, this is one of the things where you're going to have to go off and do it your way and leave me to do it my way, and we're just going to have to be separate but together on this. And I can't even, it's like really small, tiny things that, for real, do not make or break anything, except for my ability to function as a human being, which I guess is a big deal. But I just have to say to them now, I am right, you're wrong. That's the end of it. And they know that it's one of those moments where I'm not really here to have a debate discussion. I'm telling you, this is the way it is. And it's now time for you to accept it and move on, because you're not going, it's one of those things where, yeah, I am not flexible. This is the law. I have spoken. And I mean, it makes for, but that's where things come where, like, Chaos Goblin. I mean, we have nicknames. I mean, we make fun of each other. It's not making fun, actually, because making fun is cruel. We can laugh about it. We have fun around it. It's not like we make each other feel horrible because of our neurodivergencies. We actually celebrate it, and we think it's hilarious. Sometimes in the moment, it doesn't feel hilarious. Sometimes in the moment, their feelings will get hurt much more than mine. I really do not get hurt feelings all that often in the middle of things. But we always laugh about it later. I mean, that's the... Yes, you are hearing Good Sleep in the background again. I was going to give you a heads up about that. But as always, I don't know. There is really something about the sound of dogs snoring. And I was kind of hoping that you would also be able to hear the sound of my cats screaming at each other. They had, not screaming in a bad way. People will say cats don't meow for each other past kittenhood. That's not true with one of my cats, my male cat, Porthos. He will actually call out to Hero, which is the girl cat. And Hero only meows when she wants mine or my partner's attention, whereas Porthos does a mix of calling out for her and calling out for us, and he has like different yowls, different sounds, depending on who he is calling out for. But they are still meows. They're just different meows. But yeah, I was hoping that you would hear him meowing and caterwauling, but the dogs then got so loud, which is fine. Maybe one week you'll be able to hear both the cats and the dogs going at the same time, because that's always fun. Which reminds me, let me see if I can quickly pull it up on Twitter. Some images. I got up the other day from my desk to do my hourly get up and move, so you don't become ridiculously sore. And I woke up and I looked on the couch, and the dogs were like sleeping side by side but in opposite directions on the couch. They do that often. I mean, but it's like yin and yang. And then I walked over into my studio, and here's the cats doing the yin and yang. And so this is basically my life all day long, is just animals littered all over the house, which is good. I mean, yes, it is it's a deeper sound that carries. And sometimes I think that Porthos specifically is going to choose to take a nap like close to where my mic is. But when it comes, like, he starts, they're adorable, aren't they? I mean, okay, let's look at them again, just because they are just very, very sweet. And we love them. And I'll let you know who is who. Okay, so this one is Archer, and that one is Ziggy, and they're litter mates. And even though Archer is 16 inches, which is tall for a beagle, but they're part of their lineage are from Australia, and Australian beagles are actually bred bigger. So he's 16 inches, and normally beagles are 13 or 15 inches. He's 16, his brother's 13 inches, Ziggy. But Ziggy was born first out of the litter of 4, and Archer was born last out of the litter of 4. And then This one is Porthos, the all gray one, and then the muted calico, or diluted tortie, I should say. Sorry, she's a diluted tortie, is Hero. And they look almost the same size when they're loafed like this, but she's actually like a very small cat compared to, I mean, she's, I want to say maybe 5 pounds and he's 10 pounds. I mean, so but they love each other. And sometimes I'm always trying to get pictures, because sometimes they're all sleeping together in just one big huge pile of cuteness. And it can be really difficult to get work done because you just want to join the pile of animals and be part of the fluff. So, yeah, that is my, it makes having the sound of snoring dogs and snoring cats just around you, and then we'll go back to the noise conversation. Like, that's noises that actually chill out my nervous system. I find it very peaceful and very calming, and my cat Porthos has the best purrs. Okay, this is gonna sound really bad, and I'm sorry for what I'm about to say, but I wish there were some way to remove his purr box and stick it inside my pillow and fall asleep listening to the sound of his purr in my pillow. There's probably a way that I could record it where it sounds the exact same way as if I was putting my ear on him when he is purring, but he has the best purr that has ever existed. Hero's purr is very loud and obnoxious. It's cute. She purrs with her mouth open, and it's very loud. Like, you can hear it, like, probably halfway across the world. That's an exaggeration, obviously. But, yeah, it's just one of those things where I could listen, like, instead of the white noise machines, maybe that's what they mean by pink noise. Like, some people are like, pink noise is better than white noise. I could listen, like, to the sound of my animals sleeping, and it just puts me completely at rest. Namek is wondering if the pitch has something to do with it. You know, it could. It very well could. It's like, probably because it's the lower register. Like, the humming, even the humming of electronics is, like, kind of higher pitched. Dishes clanging is like up in the higher register. The decibels are different, where low rumbles, I like low rumbles, is also like there's like an 8-hour long video on YouTube that is just the sound of the Enterprise D's warp engines going for 8 hours, and you actually can buy like a bedside Enterprise model that is the warp engine sounds, and like that kind of noise is also very low, and it's a hum and kind of like a low whoosh, and that is also very relaxing to me. Like, that noise I can handle. Other noises, it's the equivalent of nails on a chalkboard, and it makes my skin crawl, and it causes me to tense up, and it just overwhelms me to like a huge degree. So it could be pitch. It very well could be that. At least for me specifically. It's the same with certain singing voices I cannot cope with. And I like music. I will get lost in music. I listen to music almost all day long while I'm working. It's another thing that calms my nervous system, and I actually like submerge my body in music. That's the only way that I can describe how I experience music. I'm looking for GG020. But there's other voices, like there's some voices that they hurt me. It is the only way, like it causes actual pain. It hurts me. The sound of rain and thunderstorms and fireplace crackling sounds videos too, is Anomic saying. So, yes to the rain, yes to fireplaces crackling. I'm going to tell you a story about thunderstorms. Because my partner, who I'm sure you remember Anomic, but people who may be listening for the first time, my partner grew up in Virginia, and there are no mountains in Virginia. Okay, there are mountains, but they're not like mountains here. Mountains there are much smaller. They're round. The valleys are not as valleyness, like cavernous, as valleys here. We live in a valley. Virginia gets a lot of thunderstorms in the summer. Like, it's hot, humid, it rains every night, it thunders, it dries off. It's like part of the summers in Virginia and Maryland. Maryland is there. So no Mariah high registers for me, exactly. And they love thunderstorms. And thunderstorms freak the living daylights out of me. And they did not understand this. And I was like, no, it feels like the world is coming to an end when the thunder cracks and explodes. And they're like, that is just ridiculous. And we don't get many thunderstorms here in the valley. And then they moved from Virginia, from their flat land, to here in the Cowichan Valley. And they experienced a thunderstorm here. And because of how big the mountains are and how deep the valley is, the thunder reverberates and it's like in an amphitheater, so it's heightened and it echoes and it reverberates, and one crack of thunder can rumble for like a full minute, and it feels like the earth is about to split open and swallow you whole. So, and people always think I am over-exaggerating what it feels like to experience a thunderstorm where I live, until they actually experience the rare thunderstorm here and are like, no wonder they scare you, because it does sound like the earth is literally going to crack open and swallow you whole. Like, I much prefer earthquakes. Like, we have lots of earthquakes. Give me an earthquake any day over a thunderstorm. Please and thank you. And I am not at all, like, exaggerating the oh my god, it's going to kill me noise that happens here. So that's a thing that happens. CG020. So and I'm saying that they forgot about that. Yes, it's true. Some places have really scary storms. It's one of those things as well. Like, people who live where you get tornadoes. I mean, I don't know if it's because earthquakes here are not as frequent as, like, high storm events. I just, like, no, I would rather have an earthquake and the earth swallow me whole than the wind pick up my house and relocate it. But also, it could be the fact that I grew up on the Pacific, like in the Ring of Fire, and earthquakes are just a normal occurrence here. The rolling, so Anomic likes the rolling, rumbly sound in some storms. Yeah. So I have heard that rolling, rumbly sound in movies. Like, Twister is one that I'm thinking of. And it's just, it's like a lion roaring. It's not a horrible sound, but that's not the noise of thunder here. The noise of thunder here is I don't know, like, the gods are angry and they're going to strike you down dead. So that's the fun of that. What else am I doing this week? I feel like I'm forgetting something. Nope. So, do you all, because we have Victoria Day, which is being part of Commonwealth countries to celebrate Queen Victoria's birthday. And I know the Americans aren't about that at all, but it's Memorial Day for you coming up, right? Is that the... Do you also... if it's Memorial Day, I need to tell you a story for people who are not aware. And this is where autistic people need to learn about everything. My friends like to say I am the complete encyclopedia set minus the letter Q. Because there are still a few things that I haven't learned yet. And it's just, yeah, That is how my autism works. Nomic says they need to experience a Pacific Northwest storm at least once in your life. Yeah. You need to be sure you're experiencing in a valley, though, because, like, somewhere really mountainous, like maybe, like, near Rainier area in Seattle, or come up to Vancouver Island and come to the Cowichan Valley and experience it in the Cowichan Valley. But there are places, like, Seattle is too close to the water, but, like, further inland in Washington, where they have the valleys and stuff, that the odd... It's really difficult, though, because we don't have storms in the same way that they happen, like, east of the Rocky Mountains. Yeah, so Memorial Day. Oh, on the 30th. Okay. Well, that is weird. So ours is the May 24 weekend. So it's whatever Monday is closest to May 24th, which is Queen Victoria's birthday. And they used to be... So the whole reason why Memorial Day exists in America, and it's the fact that it's not uniform. So there is in the United States a law that is not really like actually adhered to in the way that it was originally intended, called the Uniform Holiday Act. And I don't know if they meant uniform as in, like, military uniform for Memorial Day, or, like, uniform is as in needing uniformity in what days Canada and the United States have off. But the reason why because we have Remembrance Day, which is, like, you call it Veterans Day. In Canada, it's not to honor current service people, it's to honor... It's remembering those we have lost in service, is what November 11th is about. So that's your Memorial Day, basically. But the reason why it was created is because we have Victoria Day, and they're like, you know what, when Canada shuts down and retail is not happening, it hurts our markets and stuff to have people still working while Canadians are working, so we need to make sure that we have holidays on the same days. But they didn't quite understand that Victoria Day is fixed differently than Memorial Day is in. Like, Memorial Day is like the last Monday of like, they thought our Victoria Day was the last Monday, when it's not. It's the whatever Monday is closest to May 24th, which is Queen Victoria's birthday. So that's why Memorial Day exists, is because we have a constitutional monarchy, and we celebrate a dead queen's birthday. And the reason why we celebrate Queen Victoria's birthday is because Queen Victoria was the queen when Canada decided that we were going to have a new constitution and be called the Dominion of Canada instead of British North America. So that's a fun little piece of information for you. It's bizarre. Oops, I did that on the wrong place. That doesn't matter, because that's going to have a sticker on it. So, what else do I have coming up this week? I don't know. I mean, everything's all blocked off because of these edits. It's so exciting. I wish I could show you what a marked up manuscript looks like, but there's no way of doing that. Oh, maybe next week. I don't know. It's fascinating to me because there's all sorts of, like, they turn on track changes, and there's all sorts of, like, little formatting notes in there as well. So once it gets passed on to the design department, they can easier, like, turn it into a proper cookbook. It's bizarre. I like it. What's happening? Oh, so what else? So, anything exciting? I think that was the season finale. Yeah. Shows are almost over, and I don't know what I'm going to... I'm having a hard time finding things to pick up where other things left off. So, yeah, we have... Oh, so I think Stranger Things dropped today, maybe? I don't know. We're looking... That's a show that I'm hoping Stranger Things, this is the last season. Only because, I mean, we joked that the kids of Stranger Things are now in their 30s. They're not. They're, like, late teens. Maybe around 20 now. But, yeah, it's time to retire Stranger Things after this season. Yes, I did get the canning pantry picture in. Let me see if I can pull that up on my phone. So you can see how that turned out. I'm looking for... No, that's not where I'm looking for. My doggies. You want to can, but you are afraid of the meats. It's all about... So here's let me give you some tips about that. I don't want to be my photos. I want to be in files. So when you're jarring things with meat in it, you have to can it, process it at 1 hour and 15 minutes. So that everything, like the meat, reaches the internal temperature necessary to kill off botulism and other bacteria, and so they will not regrow. And so the vacuum happens, and all of that other stuff. And that is all great. But a way to do that, to make sure that it's processed, like it's reaching the internal temperature, is just make sure that your food is hot, like freshly cooked before you jar it. And like a lot of jarring instructions will be like, you can do it cold and process it sit from cold. And like if I can, but if you do it, if you do it from, like I jar my food, here's the full pantry image that's going to be in the cookbook. I like it. It's just, yeah, that's my pantry filled with canned goods from recipes from my cookbook. So it did make it. It's yeah, if you're starting from like putting your food in your jars hot, then you don't have to worry about it. Especially if you're doing smaller cuts. If you were like doing a big huge hunk of like say roast beef or a steak or whatever, then I would understand the concern, but most of the things you're going to be jarring are going to be smaller cuts, like things that are cut up into bite-sized pieces, and the chances of it not reaching the proper internal temperature is very, very like minuscule. And if you want to be even more cautious, you can get an Instapot Max, which costs a lot of money. It does. That said, an Instapot Max has a temperature sensor, and it not only does jars it at 15 pounds of pressure as opposed to 11 pounds of pressure. So, but it also has a temperature, and it makes sure that the temperature stays, like it reaches a specific temperature to start the timer on the processing time. So it eliminates some of that worry about making sure that your food has reached the temperature, because it will not start the processing time until it has reached the temperature that it needs to reach and stay there. No, it says that looks great. They have jars and the canner, but feel I need to clear it the whole week to do it. Maybe. It all depends on how you do it. So, like, I big batch cook something once a week and I'll jar it. The very first time, though, you fill up your pantry, yes, you do need to clear off a whole week, because you're going to be cooking every day and jarring every day. And then when you're done that week, you're going to be exhausted. But it is worth it. And then once you have your pantry full of food, you're only having to cook like once or twice a week to replenish that as things wear down. I mean, so you're only pulling out your can. And sometimes, like, you can even go 2 weeks between having to do another big batch of a meal and can it again. So the very initial labor, absolutely, it takes a minute, as the kids say, to be able to stock your pantry. But once it is stocked, then it is very easy maintenance to, like, what I do is once I'm down to 2 jars of something, then I'll cook it. And all my recipes are like 6 jars. Some of them are even more, right? So that is like 6 meals, and so they last a while. Like, once my pantry is full, it's like 46 lunches and dinners are jarred, and it takes a while to whittle that down. Because even though I do mostly cook everything, you still, every now and then, I don't even want to open up a jar, and I will order in something from DoorDash or whatever. Because I have some favorite Indian restaurants that it's always better when someone else can cook for you now and then. Food just tastes better when someone else's love is in it. It is like, if you have issues with energy, if you're a spoonie, then it does take some effort to begin with. Over time, it's all about maintenance, and it's great. I'm not quite sure if we're going to have more episodes beyond that. Namek is saying that sounds like it would be worth it. Just need to get to a schedule and get it done. Yeah, that's basically, and I have in my cookbook, one of the things that I have is, like, how to create that schedule. Especially if you need to stock your cupboard because you have an upcoming surgery, and you need to have your cupboard, like I have, how to create that schedule. But it's just sitting down, writing out a list of recipes, figuring out like what days you'll be able to cook, making your shopping lists, and just really just making a well thought out schedule. That still allows for some flexibility in case you have to move things around. Manama, do you modify any of your recipes for fat content? I guess your cookbook will already deal with it. So it's not really so much fat that is the problem. For canning purposes, it's so a lot of the times when you are cooking things in the Instant Pot, the fat gets denatured, and that's what the issue is, right? Like, if the fat's not denatured, then you can open up yourself to botulism spores and stuff like that. And so it's like full cans of, say, milk, and this is the weird thing, because not like America, and I address this in my cookbook, is that America is the only country that has warnings against canning things like milk or butter. Every other country says it's safe to do. For whatever reason, America, and maybe it's because people are not processing it for long enough, America is the only country that's like, well, you should not do this. So it's one of those your miles may vary thing. In some ways the FDA is maybe a little bit overcautious in some areas, and not cautious enough in other areas. Of public health and safety. I think that is a fair. I mean, every country has some weird thing. So it's really, if the butter's denatured, if it's like 1 or 2 tablespoons per jar, it's fine. You're not going to have a problem. The problem arises. The potential for problem arises if it is like super, super high fat content, like jarring milk or butter. But 1 or 2 tablespoons, I mean, like most, like even the America's, I can't remember the department, I want to say it's agriculture, but it may not. There's a whole like canning part of the government, homesteading type stuff. They have recipes for chili and stuff, and chili has a fair amount of fat in it from the hamburger. They deal with things like canning high fat fish and stuff. So 1 or 2 tablespoons, and it's not even that much per jar. It's fine. So Navik's saying, yeah, they are scared because they say don't add any fat and make sure it is all out. Yeah, you don't. Yeah, that's that is an overcautious thing. If you were to if even the government of Canada has their own recommendations for jarring, and they're like, just make sure it's denatured, make sure it's thoroughly cooked, and you'll be fine. If you're really nervous about it, you know how you could always take a paper towel and dip it into the fat, and the fat will soak into the paper towel, and you just do that before jarring it. But fat is a necessary part of the diet. It adds to, you're supposed to have at least 68 grams of fat in your diet every single day, minimum. So it may, if you're on certain diets, because of glucose regulation issues, then your fat content may need to be higher. But 68 for an adult, you need fat in your diet, and it adds flavor. Fat is an important part of flavor, and is also fat's an important part of feeling satiated after a meal. So as long as you're not jarring full jars of butter or milk, you're fine. But if you are worried, then just paper towel, have the fat soak off, and then re-add the fat later when you add it by adding a teaspoon of olive oil or something when you eat it to add the fat back in. That would be my recommendation. But it's not necessary. It's not necessary. And it's probably because maybe one or two people didn't process their jars long enough and got botulism or something. And it's one of those things where one or two people get sick from something in America, and they kind of we can't trust people to be able to process it properly, so we're just going to go extreme when it comes to the recommendations for how to prepare the food. Not afraid. I'm not saying they're not afraid to eat it. Was just worried about the canning process. Yeah, it does not enter the only thing so if you're canning, after you take your jars out, you wait for all the lids to pop, and that is just as they cool down, the vacuum forms, they pop. And you just touch the lid, and if the lid is bouncy, you need to reprocess it. You have up to 24 hours to reprocess it. So you stick it back in the fridge, and you can either can it as long as you either eat it or reprocess it within 24 hours is safe. But the only way that fat would interfere in the canning process is if you do not, before you put the lid on, the snap lid part of it on, you need to wipe the rim clean. Because if the rim is not clean, then that can interfere with the seal. And that is part of the worries, that people may not be wiping the lids clean with paper towel before affixing the lid. So they're saying, while they still do canning and just plan ahead, yeah. And they shut the whole country down. It's bizarre. I mean, I don't want to talk about other things, but there's other public health issues in America where they're so what if tens of thousands of people are dying from this thing? And I'm not just talking about the current pandemic. We're just free for all. Who cares? But 2 people get botulism because they didn't follow instructions properly. We're just going to go extreme with the recommendations and do things that no other country is going to recommend because it's ridiculous. It's a really interesting difference between our countries is what I'm going to say about that. I was looking to see how many episodes left of Snowpiercer. No, not Snowpiercer. I wrote this down wrong. This is supposed to be Euphoria. So I'm in the wrong app. I have to see how many episodes we have. Oh my god, they're getting so loud. They're so cute. It's too bad. I could always maybe change it afterwards, but change the live streams afterwards to ASMR dog snoring. Caution, dog snoring in this video. Add vinegar on paper towel to clean the rims. You can do that. It's not necessary. You can. But they Bounty would be the paper towel, and I am going to drop a brand, is the paper towel that I would recommend. And the reason why I recommend Bounty is because Bounty doesn't leave, and we use it in food photography and food styling for a reason, is Bounty doesn't leave lint behind. Other paper towels leave lint behind, and that lint, even if it's microscopic and you can't see it, can also interfere with so these 2 more days can also interfere with the sealing process. So you could do vinegar just to make sure that any added grease there is up. That's perfectly cool to do. It's not necessary. I just do, like, Bounty is so good. It picks up most of what will interfere. But yeah, totally take that extra step if you feel it is necessary, or if you feel, especially while you're learning, because a lot of, like with all cooking, right? Like, you first learn via a recipe or a cookbook, and you follow it to the letter until you learn, and then you kind of learn by feel, just what needs to be done and when, and how you can safely tweak the process to work best for you. But there's always, just because, like, my cookbook is being, like, it's a Canadian publisher, I'm pretty sure I do acknowledge that America does have different guidelines around fat content. So do other countries. But if you do, like, look at Canada's food, just, like, yeah. We look at different countries' recommendations, and then you can see just it can alleviate some of that nervousness that you have about things, just because the America's jarring instructions and website it's extra for sure. It does go a little bit overboard. Yeah. Bounty is my recommendation. It's also very important that you fill up your jars beforehand with hot water. You don't have to sterilize them beforehand. They're going to get sterilized during the jarring process. Like, that's another thing. But you do want to fill up the FDA's or whatever is like you... Maybe you'll wait for the cookbook so you can be lazy and put off canning for a while. You could totally do that if you want. You'll be waiting for a while. I mean, it doesn't come out until next March or April. But if you want to, I'm not going to judge you. If that's completely up to you. But what was I saying? Crud. Yeah, the sterilizing of the jars. That's what I was talking about. You don't need to sterilize them, because they will be sterilized during the process. It gets so hot in there that if you're processing it long enough and the pressure does not drop before 11 pounds of pressure, you're going to kill off any bacteria that's in there, and it does not have an environment for it to regrow because of how long it's processing and at how much pressure that causes that much heat. But you need to fill your jars with hot tap water, as hot as your tap water will go, and let it sit for a few minutes. That way, you're not putting hot liquid from what you've just cooked into a cold jar, and so that your jar doesn't explode. And then as soon as your jar is filled, stick it into the hot water that is in the canner. Just again, so that the glass does not have the opportunity to get cooler and then reheat violently and explode. So, I mean, that's the biggest worry when it comes to jarring your own food, is you can have exploding jars. That's where the risk is. And that may sound like a scary risk, but I don't know. Oh my God. So here's an autistic story for everybody. So, Pyrex dishes, they tell you on the instructions, like when you buy a Pyrex dish, they're like, don't put this on your stovetop. Use it in the oven only, or a microwave, or whatever. But do not cook with it on the stove. But they don't explain to you why. And me, being like someone who actually needs reasoning behind things sometimes. This happened, I mean, I don't know, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, maybe, like a long time ago. I was like 19 or 20. I was like, I had been cooking for years by that point, but living on my own, and I needed to make some pasta, and all of my pots were filled with other things I was cooking. I was having company over, and I needed to make pasta, and everything needed to be cooked and ready at the same time. And I didn't have any pots, and so I'm like, I'm just going to put the Pyrex dish. It was a 19 by 13 one. And I'm going to put it on the stove elements and fill it with water. And I'm going to cook my pasta on the stove. Kaboom. It exploded. And I had the Pyrex dish everywhere. And it wasn't until later, it's the way that it heats on the stove. It's that hot spots created and going from rapid, quick to hot on the stove versus in an oven where it is heated evenly and it's not a rapid change of temperature. And so it was after that exploding incident that someone explained to me why we do things like glass carafes and thermoses. We fill it with hot liquids before we put boiling liquids in it. I mean, all that stuff. It's so that the glass doesn't explode during a rapid temperature change, where the heat may be concentrated in one area. So don't be like me and don't explode Pyrex dishes on your stovetop because you don't know why they tell you not to do those things. So I'm letting you know, that's the science. Thermodynamics and physics is why we don't do those things, friends. Don't be me. And I'm glad you can learn from my adventures in the kitchen. So, yeah, that's a thing. And everyone, they were treating me like I was, like, stupid for not knowing that. I'm like, how would you know that? Like, unless somebody tells you that, how do you know that's, like, the reason for it to not happen? I mean, you can't just, some things you can infer, but there are some things where you actually have to be told why. You need to understand the science behind it, so you're just not thinking it's some ridiculous suggestion that there's actual reasoning behind why they say not to do this. And I always thought it was just like one of those things where it's like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of some weird, again, one of those overly cautious recommendations because someone once did something ridiculous. And used an object in a way that it wasn't intended. And to me, it just didn't make sense because if you can put if the glass is oven and microwave safe, why isn't it stovetop safe? And I was saying their aunt last week said you can microwave an egg, and she did, and took it out and held it up and said, "See," and then the egg said kaboom all over the kitchen. Yes. It's like why you poke holes in a potato before you microwave it, because the steam and that gets built up inside has nowhere to escape and it will explode. Same with why you also have to poke holes when you do it in the oven as well, because steam does build up and they will explode, especially with the way that stuff is heated in a microwave. It is. Yeah. I mean, the way we learn things, I like everyone, there's people who are afraid of, I don't know, making mistakes. If you're allowed to make mistakes in a way, like, no one likes to be made to feel stupid. But making mistakes is also how we learn and how we grow and how we figure things out. So I'm all about, like, not in the toxic Facebook, like, make things quickly and break things in the process. No, not like that. But, like, we need to have room. It's called science. The other day, and I would never do it, but it's amazing that anybody trusts living with me. because like as I was jarring something the other day, the rocker on my pressure cooker started rocking because it was reaching the 15 pounds pressure. And my stove, it's a glass stove top, so like the heat element turns on and off, and so it fluctuates between 11 and 15 pounds of pressure as it's cooking, and that's good. That's safe. That's what you want. If it goes below 11, you need to restart the counter. If it goes above 15, you better turn down that heat before it gets critical. But as I'm hearing it rocking, I walk in to check on to make sure that it's not going over the 15 pounds pressure. Like, I did have this thought about what would happen if I just crank the stove all the way on to high and let it reach critical. And I want to see what would happen. And I would never do it, but there is that part of me that likes science, that likes to experiment, that likes to see consequences in real time, that thinks for a minute, what would happen if I just let this explode? That would be fascinating to watch, but I would never do that. But there is that part of me. Yeah, it's an interesting part of me because I'm very much about rules and following safety and all that other stuff. But there's also always the curious part of me that really wants to learn things, like first-hand experiences, and see for myself what happens if you don't follow safety protocols. Makes me wish that I had like a Mythbusters type facility. I mean, I know they've blown up a few hot water tanks on Mythbusters, but I want to blow up a pressure cooker. Namik is saying, I have a curious mind and a dangerous curious mind. Yes. And I think that sums up a lot of autistics. We have a curious mind, and sometimes it is a dangerous curious mind. And if it wasn't for the fact that I do not like being hurt, I don't like being pain, and I know that explosions are dangerous and painful, then, I mean, like, self-preservation. I'm not, like, I know that there's a very good reason. Like I've seen pressure explosions, like, happen before on, like, hot water tanks or boilers or whatever. Economics, you would have a mess to clean out. That's what would happen. That's what someone said when I tweeted about it. Someone said that they remember, like, someone on high school was cooking beans in like a little stove hot pressure canner or like pressure cooker, and it exploded, and there was beans all over the place. Beans, like, in a little, like, I don't know, maybe like 3 liters, 3 quarts, whatever, like the small pots are, is completely different than a big, huge, like 26 quart canner. It might be a little bit more than just a mess when there's 8 jars of food inside of it, and it's like the big, huge, tall boy that weighs a bunch of weight. I mean, the lid might like pop off and go through the ceiling, maybe. There would be definitely a mess though, but the extent of the mess and the damage, I mean, I just want to see it. I need a test facility is what I need. And why can I not find? I'm missing one of my markers. I'm looking. Oh, here it is. Nope, that's not it. I just had it not that long ago. Did I leave it here when I was doing no? I'm looking for my N52. Oh, it's actually time to start wrapping things up here. So, I will be back then. Thanks for sitting with me again, Anomic, and anyone else who has been watching or watching on replay, and may not have said hi. Say hi. Especially, it's really interesting. The replay numbers on this recently there's been a consistent number of you, surprisingly, more than I would have thought, that have been taking the time to watch this on replay and do your weekly, this is what I was looking for, do your weekly planning, with me alongside during the week. So that is also really appreciated. So thank you about that. Yeah, there may be a video out there already of it happening. Yeah, that's a good idea. I might search for pressure canners exploding, and report back to you all on that. So it's good chatting with you. Yes, see you next time. Thank you, everybody. Back here next week, 1 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. British Daylight Time, GMT in the winter, for another live time with me. I still have to film my unhaul video. I will not be able to get to it this week. Hopefully by the end of this month, you will be able to get a see of everything that I will be getting rid of for stickers and stuff, and opportunity for you all to buy maybe at some point. Yeah, so until next week, thanks for stopping in. Thanks for watching on replay. Bye.